Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the laws of nutrition. Now, as the title says, food is your greatest weapon in terms of fat loss, in terms of forging and crafting your dream physique. So in this video I'm going to be breaking down the laws of nutrition, because essentially nutrition is a game, so let me teach you the rules so you can get better at playing it. That way you're not wasting any extra time, any extra effort, and you actually get results. Because a lot of the reason that I've noticed that I didn't get results in the past, and also all of the clients that came to me stuck and frustrated and couldn't seem to figure out what they needed to do to change because they were trying really hard, was simply because they didn't understand the rules of the game, the rules of the transformation, and how all of this stuff works. And when I say rules, I'm not saying that this is going to be restriction and, putting limitations on you to a certain degree. I'm just trying to make that go along with the fact that I said nutrition is a game. So nutrition is a game. In this video, I'm going to explain it and then tell you the most important rules that you need to follow so that you can get the results that you're looking for and then apply it to your lifestyle. But before I get into the presentation of the laws of nutrition, I want to discuss this little graphic here on the left. Now, transforming, achieving anything, whether it be building your dream physique or any other goal that you have, is going to start by taking that first step. Now, momentum, snowball effect, all that shit is real, but it does not work if you don't take the initial action. I don't want you to watch this video and then go look for another video and then continue to look for other videos and take notes and plan and strategize. I want you to watch this video and take something from it and take that first step. Because everything I'm about to say is going to waste your damn time if you don't pair that with action. Once you take that first step, obviously you're not going to get here overnight, but it's going to compound over time. But without further ado, let's get into the laws of nutrition and we'll break down the rules of the game. So, before I discuss the rules of the game, let's actually look at the goal. We want to promote fat loss while stimulating muscle growth and retention at the same time. Now, I want to say that because some people think that their goal is weight loss, when in reality, who you want to look like or what you want to look like or the physique that you're trying to build isn't just someone who sees the scale drop, isn't just someone who is obsessed with watching, pounds just fall off their waist. While that is great for major weight loss, just losing weight isn't going to mean that you're going to look lean, strong, toned, fit, all the descriptive words that everyone likes to use for building muscle. Just because you lose weight doesn't mean you're going to get that look. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the laws and rules that will help you achieve that look, which also will be weight loss, but this is more so weight loss to get the dream physique, not weight loss just to hit numbers on the scale as a metric, okay? So the first thing that we're going to discuss is perspective of food. Now, all of these, there's 7 bullet points, but 6 of them are laws, and one of them is something I want to discuss at the end to help you have encouragement on your journey, understand how the journey is going to work, so that when you are on it, you're not confused, you don't think you're doing the wrong thing, or you know what to expect, you know what it looks like, so that when those things do arise, you're not, what is the word? Discouraged. You're not discouraged, okay? So the 6 rules that we're going to discuss are all going to be paired with slides following this one. We're going to discuss the perspective of food. We're going to talk about calories and tracking and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about nutrients, why we want to eat them, the purpose of them, and then we'll talk about nutrient timing, so when we should eat things and why we should do those things so that we can work on stimulating fat loss and muscle growth. And then we'll discuss activity levels and how that plays into your calories and fat loss in and of itself, and then also hydration, because hydration is important for better performance and cognitive brain function, but also regulating your hunger cues, because when hydration is off, we'll discuss it when we get there. So we'll go ahead and get into the first thing, which is going to be the perspective of food. Now, I need to put myself from, there we go. Okay. So when it comes to the perspective of food, this is the first thing that we need to switch. And you guys know I'm very big on mindset, because changing your mindset is what ultimately transforms your life and body. So first things first, can't view food as the enemy, can't be scared of it, can't be obsessed with eating as little as possible, can't be obsessed with those kinds of things, right? Because that in and of itself is a negative relationship with food, because food was not the enemy. It was never the enemy at all. It was your relationship with it. It was what you used it for. You probably used it for a coping mechanism, a cheap dopamine hit, instead of using it to build muscle, promote a better lifestyle, promote better thinking, brain function, and all those kinds of things. So you were using it in the wrong way, which is what may have led you to be stuck, may have led you to be overweight. And I'm saying this because that is something that I used to struggle with. And also it is a commonality amongst almost all of the clients that I've brought on. So it's very real. And I think it's something that people don't notice. They don't notice that they fear food. They may not even know that that's what's limiting them. And so every nutrient that you eat serves a purpose. Now, I'm not saying to not enjoy food. That's why I included this picture here down of loaded fries. That would be my last meal on earth if I had the choice. Loaded fries are my favorite meal of all time. Now, when I say every nutrient serves a purpose, I mean that every nutrient you eat, whether it be something you deem as healthy or not, serves a purpose. And the reason I included my favorite food ever is because this might not necessarily be the best thing to be eating to get where I want to be, but food can also be used for enjoyment, fulfillment. It's not something that I want to rob the joy of for you, but I want you to understand that it can't always be used through that lens. And sometimes we have to put on different glasses depending on what is needed most out of us at that time, right? So whether we're looking at food through the lens of enjoyment or looking at food through the lens of results in terms of mental and physical health, And also understanding that those lenses can also be blurred so that you get the best of both worlds. So I want to discuss healthy because people come to me often and they're like, well, I try to eat really healthy. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because some people's version of healthy is eating everything organic, but they're still in a surplus, so they're gaining weight. Or other people's version of healthy is portion control or eating like dieting foods or like slim fast shakes or like protein chips and zero sugar candy. Like, I don't know what they mean by healthy. So just trying to eat healthy based on societal standards doesn't mean that that's going to actually serve your purpose. And it can be quite stressful trying to force yourself to eat healthy and then not get results because just saying you're going to eat healthy isn't going to directly correlate to getting results. Next is food is not the enemy, it's our greatest catalyst for growth. Again, relating back to the title, food is your greatest weapon. It is the best tool in terms of crafting and forging this physique. So when we view it as something we need to restrict, as something that we can't have, as eating as little as possible and trying to damn near starve ourselves because we're so obsessed with weight loss, fat loss, and we want to get there so badly, we're like shooting ourselves in the foot. We are prolonging our progress. We are making it a lot harder on ourselves. We are probably crashing our mental as well as our physical because if you're restricting nutrients, you're probably not very energized, maybe not even thinking clearly, and you'll tend to feel down. You'll get really frustrated and you'll feel like it doesn't work and you'll maybe even feel a little bit hopeless in terms of this journey. And I don't want you to feel that way because when you feel that way, you start to get this idea that there's no point, that it's just unachievable, that you're just not meant to have it, when in reality, it's just a misunderstanding. So food is not the enemy. It is our greatest catalyst for growth. It's your best friend. It became my best friend when it used to be my enemy because I struggled with binge eating habits. And I began to just like try to stay away from food as much as possible because I didn't know how to navigate that. And I didn't understand that although food can play a role, like food can be the greatest weapon in building your physique, but can also be the greatest weapon in getting obese. So it's all about the way that you go about it. And again, understanding these rules and laws in your mindset. That's really what I'm trying to have you understand with this bullet point specifically. Next, same gist, a negative relationship with food is one of the biggest hurdles people face, and it's often unbeknownst to them. So people fall into this like blindness, I guess, of like constantly trying to eat as little as possible, trying to keep their calorie intake really low and thinking that that's a flex. When in reality, the biggest flex is understanding nutrition and knowing how to eat to get the results that you want instead of just shooting from the hip and hoping and praying that because you ate damn near nothing, you're going to get results. Because nobody can live like that. And realistically, you're setting yourself up for like a ticking time bomb, right? You can only restrict yourself so much before you hit zero. I included that bullet point because it's a very common hurdle that a lot of people face. And so if you resonate with that, I want you to know that these following slides will be addressing that kind of thing to help you repair that negative relationship with food when you understand how it can actually benefit you and that it doesn't just, not every calorie is going to equate to a pound gained or fat gained. Restriction has its limits. Now, I said this because I just told you not to get in the mindset of restricting yourself around food. However, it does require a level of self-control to be able to get yourself wherever it is that you want, because we all have walls, we all have limits. And when you gain that self-control and the ability to restrict yourself from temptation, from vices, from things that pull you away from your true destined path towards that goal, you will then be able to break past those barriers and those walls and keep moving forward. It's usually a lack of self-control or the ability to restrict ourselves from going off plan that makes us kind of fall off track, give up, and ultimately not reach that end goal that we're trying to get to. So don't restrict food and don't have that mindset, but have the understanding that you need to be in full control of yourself and have as much or work on self mastery as much as you can, because at the end of the day, you are going to be the person responsible and the person who leads you to where you want to be. So understand that you need to have a level of restriction on yourself at all times because you're going to be faced with temptations and things that are going to take you off track. And if you are weak minded in that sense, you're going to be going off track a lot more frequently if you don't work on building up those principles of mental fortitude and discipline. But I don't want you to think that you're going to restrict food. So that's why I said restriction has its limits. So restrict yourself willingly through self-mastery and discipline, but do not apply that same principle when it comes to restricting your calories and trying to starve yourself. I don't want you to get confused with restriction, because it is a good thing when you know how to walk the line with it. Now, if you have any questions about what I just said or if how I articulated it didn't fully make sense to you, you can DM me on Instagram or you can drop a comment down below. And I'm saying that because I struggled to articulate what I was trying to achieve with that last bullet point. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that have a restriction over yourself at all times and have full control. And something else I want to add with restriction has its limits. Of course, I eat things like this as much as I possibly can, but these days and these things cannot be majority of your diet. And as much as like I would love for you to be able to build your dream physique eating whatever the fuck you wanted, that's just not how it works. And you can argue to say that when you have this less, you enjoy it more. And on the other side of discipline and self-mastery and full control over yourself is a feeling of freedom. And that's not saying that you have to cut out these things or not allow them, but it's saying that you're dialed in, you're disciplined majority of the time, which then allows you the freedom to have these things without guilt, without feeling like, you're not any closer to your goals, or without letting it shame you. And I'm saying that because that's something that I personally struggled with, as well as just hearing the verbiage that my clients use when they're discussing these things. When they talk about how they go off track, you can tell in the way that they speak about it that they feel shameful and that they feel guilty. And that's usually an indicator that they give in to these things a lot of times, just for the majority of people. So, in order to avoid that shame and that guilty feeling and be able to enjoy times like these with family or friends without being like, damn, I really feel like I'm off track or I might, I feel fat or whatever, is in having that discipline majority of the time. So next, I want to discuss calories, tracking, awareness, a calorie deficit, all those kinds of things, because those things play into fat loss. And they're really big catalysts in terms of actually getting the needle to move. What is maintenance? Now, whenever you hear somebody refer to their maintenance calories or maintenance, it is the amount of nutrients, amount of calories that is required to maintain your current point, how your body currently looks, what your body currently does, day in and day out, its activity levels, all those kinds of things. So understanding that that's the baseline. So that is the amount that you eat every single day to stay where you are. Increasing it would mean gaining weight. Decreasing it would mean losing weight. And I'll run over a few of the details that dictate your maintenance calories, but it has a lot to do with how much you're working out, the amount of activity that you're doing, pretty much how active you are, and also how much muscle mass that you have. Now, if you're watching this video and trying to transform, you're not getting results, you could be lacking in the muscle mass department. So that would mean that your maintenance is going to be lower than someone that has a lot of muscle mass. And so just know that your maintenance calories can be increased. Your metabolism can also be increased with the addition of lean mass, which we'll discuss later on down in the slides. But I don't want you to think that whatever your maintenance is now is going to be your maintenance forever. It fluctuates with lean mass and current body weight. Next, we'll discuss a calorie deficit. So like I said, everyone has a maintenance. And when you eat under that maintenance, even if it's 1 calorie, even if it's 200 calories, whatever, if you eat under that maintenance, you will begin to stimulate weight loss because your body is not getting enough nutrients to do what it's currently doing. And so therefore, it is going to be caused to use what you have stored on you as an energy source because it's not getting it from external sources, i.e. the pantry, hand to mouth, whatever. So a calorie deficit is eating less than that maintenance that we just discussed. And that is how we get the ball rolling for weight loss. Now, I'm saying weight loss very intentionally because eating less will equate to weight loss. But I said at the beginning of this video that your main goal, if you want to build your dream physique, a lean, toned, muscular physique, you want to be toned, you want to be whatever, is not just weight loss. It is fat loss. It's probably also muscle growth because that is what gives someone a lean, toned look. Now, I know that sometimes girls don't understand this too. It is primarily with women, but you're not going to build muscle and then look like the Hulk. I promise you, you're not going to look like the Rock Johnson. You are not going to accidentally get bulky. All of it is within reason and within your control. But if you do want to look lean, toned, and have definition to you, muscle will need to be built in one way or another. And so I said here that a properly structured calorie deficit equals fat loss. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because, like I said, eating less is weight loss. But when we look at the nutrients that make up that idea of eating less, we then can play the game of losing fat while retaining and building muscle at the same time. And so that's why I said properly structured calorie deficit. Next, we'll talk about common calorie blindness. Now, common calorie blindness can be liquid calories. You can drink a can of soda that has 160 calories or whatever it is these days and a lot of sugar. That isn't inherently bad, not inherently unhealthy or bad, but I guarantee you it's not going to fill you up. And if you are on a fat loss journey, you don't need those extra nutrients. You have them on you, and it's not going to be beneficial to your journey at all. So things like that, things like sauces, butter, while not inherently bad, they tend to slip under the radar. So those are the most common things that I've noticed that slip under the radar are sauces, especially like super calorie dense sauces. Those sauces tend to be very high in fat because fats are more calorically dense per gram as opposed to protein and carbs, and they tend to be found in very rich, decadent sauces. So, and oils as well. So common calorie blindness things are going to be drinking your calories. So sodas, coffee's a big one. I'm sure people know smoothies and shakes are calorically dense, or they have calories. And then, sauces, butter, oil, all those kinds of things. So just pay attention because those little things that don't make you feel full or satiated may seem in your head like they're 0 calories, but they're not. They add up. So the butter, the sauces, the oils, the sodas, the drinks, all those things can start adding to the calories that you're eating without making you feel more satiated, leading you to believe that you're probably eating less or you're not eating that much, but the calories are still coming in. So you have a misconstrued perception of what you're actually intaking. Leads me right into the next bullet point. Feeling hungry does not mean you're in the clear, right? If you feel hungry, it could have been because you drank a bunch of sodas, had a bunch of oil and sauces with your lunch, and you have a bunch of calories, but you didn't really eat that much or get that much volume, so you're not feeling satiated. We can't just rely on the feeling hungry. aspect of it, because that doesn't really mean it's working. And also, something that I've made a video on previously is that your hunger cues are 9 times out of 10 lying to your ass. Like, they are not something that you can always trust. There are 3 things that dictate our hunger cues, and the last of those things is going to be homeostasis and maintaining your body's current composition. So the most important one we should be listening to is the weakest out of the 3. The 2 that are before those are going to be stress and environment. So those things that don't necessarily mean you'll be needing more nutrients will force you to feel like you need more nutrients. So making sure that we understand that hunger cues is important as well. So just because you feel hungry and you choose not to eat doesn't necessarily mean that you're stimulating fat loss. It is good that you're able to resist that temptation and figure out what the stress is that's bothering you and figure out what it is that's causing you to feel hungry. Because 9 times out of 10, you're probably feeling that hunger not because you need the extra food, but because you need psychological relief from a stressful situation. And food can often be used as a dopamine hit that's quite instant. That is a reason why people tend to fall into the trap of being overweight, because of that misconception with hunger. Next, we have high calorie, low volume. Now, high calorie, low volume things are going to be, like I said, those sauces, those sodas, those typically tend to be foods that are high in fat because, like I said, fat is more calorically dense. So those things, while they're not necessarily bad, if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck while stimulating fat loss and also building muscle at the same time, you're going to want to implement things that are lower calorie and higher volume to help you maintain that caloric deficit so that you can promote fat loss and then make sure that you're feeling fueled, energized, and satiated so that your body can build muscle and train effectively. So this is what I want you to understand when it comes to calorie tracking and being aware of things that feel like they have no calories, but in reality have calories, and understanding why a deficit is necessary and how it forces your body to burn the fat on you. Again, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments down below, or you can message me on Instagram and I will get back to you with a voice message. Go to the next slide. So we'll discuss nutrient benefits. So in the last slide, we discussed a deficit, and then I had the point below that where I said, okay, but you want to properly structure your deficit so that you can retain muscle and stimulate as much fat loss as possible and retain as much muscle. So it's not just plain weight loss, because when weight is lost, you don't know if you're losing muscle and you don't know if you're losing fat. And in order to ensure that we're losing fat and retaining as much muscle as possible, we want to structure that calorie deficit with the nutrients that I'm about to discuss with you here, and I'm going to tell you the why behind everything. So first, we're going to discuss all the nutrients that will make up your deficit. Now, these are the 3 main categories that every food falls into, and they can have a mixture of both. Rarely are they ever one or the other. They usually have 2, if not all 3. Whether it be in meals or prepackaged items or whatever. And we're going to discuss the purpose for everything and why it's important and how we're going to structure it within that deficit. Again, let's not forget the goal. We want to promote fat loss while stimulating muscle growth and retention. So first, we have protein. Now, what is protein utilized for? It is used to retain that muscle and build new muscle. Obviously pairing this with strength training, but we're only talking about nutrition, so I'm not going to get in that. But in order to make your strength training count and to build new muscle, we need to hit our protein goals as well as to retain the muscle that we're currently carrying. Now, sometimes if we put ourselves in a deficit and we focus on eating as little as possible, and we don't know how to structure these nutrients, we can not eat enough protein, and then that'll lead us to continually be skinny fat, even though we see the weight on the scale decreasing. So you may be like 200 pounds looking fluffy round around the edges, and then you get down to 190 still looking fluffy and round because you didn't prioritize your protein, which prohibited your body from being able to retain and build its muscle. So when that weight loss occurred, it lost muscle as well because it wasn't getting enough protein to retain and build on top of it. So after we've established our protein goal, now if you're going to build your protein goal, I would aim for 1 gram per pound that you weigh, or if you're severely overweight, aim for your estimated weight or your goal weight. Now next we'll go into carbs and fats. Now, before we talk about carbs and fats, protein is about 4 calories per 1 gram of protein. Now, protein sources often also have fat with them. Like, there's rarely ever a protein source that you'll be able to find that doesn't have any fat. There are ones that are low in fat. There's one that I know that is relatively 0 fat, which is egg whites. But in their normal form, it would be a regular egg. So it would have the yolk, which would be the contributing factor adding the fat. Now that we have our protein per gram per pound of body weight, and then we were able to figure out a caloric number for our deficit, that kind of takes away a chunk of that deficit, right? So think of it as a pie chart. And all 3 of these categories have respective percentages of that circle. And so we found out what our deficit is going to be per the last slide discussing maintenance and eating less than that. So that gives us our caloric number. And then we know that our protein goal is going to be whatever grams per pound of body weight you are or you estimate to be, multiply that times 4, which is going to give you a calorie number to apply to a certain piece of that pie chart or that circle that I just mentioned. So next, we're going to fill the rest of that deficit with carbs and fats. Now, the fat loss part is going to be stimulated through simply being in the deficit. The muscle growth and retention part is going to be utilized through hitting the protein goal. We're going to utilize the carbs and fats as almost indirect drivers to help with muscle growth and retention because there are energy sources, and we need energy to be able to build muscle. It requires mental and physical energy to be able to push ourselves and train and perform in the fashion necessary to stimulate growth of muscle, because muscle doesn't just randomly grow because you're just like sitting here. It needs to be pushed into doing so. So it needs to be trained, it needs to be pushed to failure, it needs to have a reason to grow. If you don't give it a reason to, it won't. And so we use carbs and fats to give ourselves that reason, right? So centering your carbs around your workout and using that as your energy source to be able to push yourself, and then utilizing fats for hormone function as well as a longer lasting energy source. When fats are paired with carbs, they tend to slow digestion and help you feel fuller longer, as well as giving you more so sustained energy. Those three things are going to be making up the pie chart of our deficit. The most important thing is going to be hitting the protein goal, and then you can fill the rest of that pie chart respectively with carbs and fats depending on what you do in the day and how your digestion works and what is personally best for you. But so long as you are staying within that calorie deficit and you are hitting those marks with protein, the ratio of carbs and fats is not going to be something that you need to hyper focus on at this moment. Next, that will lead us into whole foods and micronutrients. Now, it's going to be important to prioritize whole foods majority of the time because you want to hit your micronutrient marks. You don't want to eat a bunch of ultra processed foods simply because they are high in protein. You don't want to be having your diet mainly comprised of protein shakes, protein chips, protein snacks. Ideally, you'd be getting these from whole food sources like like meat, fish, chicken, eggs, egg whites, yogurt, things like that. And then like carbs and fat sources, potatoes, rice, pasta, noodles, bread, and then fat sources. You've got eggs, you've got butter, you've got olive oil, you've got avocado. You can also get your fats from fatty or protein sources. The main thing that you want to stay away from are saturated fats. And I'm also explaining these things so you understand that cutting nutrients is not the way to go in terms of building your dream physique. It's utilizing these nutrients properly and understanding why we eat them. Okay, so now let's discuss nutrient timing. Like I said, maintaining a calorie deficit is what's going to be the main factor driving fat loss. But maintaining that calorie deficit is difficult because you're probably going to get hungry. And so timing your meals, your nutrients, when we eat those nutrients that we just discussed is going to not only help us stay as full as possible, but also make sure that that lack of energy or that feeling of being hungry or being in that deficit does not affect our training. So when we time what we eat properly, we can make sure that we get good sleep, that we're able to train hard, even though we're not eating a fuck ton of food, and even though we're still losing fat at the same time. So these things will occur at the same time. You want to build muscle and lose fat at the same time because it shortens the process. If you just focus on losing fat and then start to focus on building muscle, it's going to prolong the process because they can be done concurrently. So why would you not do them concurrently? So in order to maintain a deficit in the most efficient way possible while also allowing ourselves the circumstances to build muscle, I'm going to discuss these points here, which will help us do so. So first, rest versus training days. Obviously, nutrient levels change. Now, I carb cycle all of my clients as well as myself, simply because you don't need the extra nutrients on your rest days because you're not training. And for the sake of simplicity, when you're training, your muscles store glycogen, and because you're in the gym, utilizing that energy, working out, working your muscles, those glycogen storages are then burned through, which need to be filled up utilizing carbs before the workout, and then also need to be replenished for rest and recovery post-workout. On your rest days, you're not training. So the glycogen storages don't get burned through, don't need to be refilled. And that's why we vary what we eat depending on what we do, because our body utilizes different nutrients for the different activities that it does. So training, high intensity things, more demanding things, our body tends to lean towards those carbs that are stored in our glycogen storages. And then on rest days, when we're doing things that are like everyday tasks, non-exercise activity, not an actual workout or no like dedicated cardio, our body utilizes more fat in terms of getting energy for those kinds of things. So that is why I vary the amount of carbs that I eat depending on what I do in the day, which helps me also maintain a deficit because I'm not adding extra nutrients that are just not needed. Those are like wasted calories that you don't really need because they're not serving the purpose of helping you train better. And I'm not saying totally getting rid of carbs on your rest days, but decreasing them significantly in terms of when you train. That also allows you to be more sensitive to the reintroduction of carbs on your training days because you don't have them every single day. And so that'll give you a little bit of a heightened energy source, as well as give your digestive system a break by lessening the amount of nutrients that you're eating on your rest days. So if you're in a calorie deficit, let's say your maintenance is 2,000 calories, and on your training days, you're eating 1,700, and then on your rest days, you're eating 15 to 16. That'll help you maintain a deficit, give your digestive system a break on those rest days because it's taking a little less calories in. And then on those rest days, you can also increase your protein and your fats because your body will primarily be using its fat sources for the energy that it needs to do things on rest days, like non-exercise things. And then increasing protein for satiation and muscle retention. So next, looking at digestion windows. Now, fats tend to digest a little bit slower. So are things that are high in fiber, like vegetables and any other high fiber foods that you're eating will slow digestion and help you feel a little bit full, but it's also essential for making sure that you're able to digest things properly and clear your intestines, your bowel out. That is what fiber or insoluble fiber is there for. It's like a broom, sweeps everything out, and it's important to make sure that you're having that fiber so that you can have proper digestion and just make sure that your body is operating properly. So you want to make sure that you're eating your carbs primarily around your workout. So pre-workout, post-workout, so that you have the energy necessary to train hard, and then you replenish what you burn through in terms of your glycogen storages so you can have proper rest and recovery and give your body as much help in terms of letting it grow muscle while it's resting. Because obviously, when you're in the gym, you're breaking down the muscle, and when you're resting and recovering, you are repairing and building more. So, part of timing when you're going to eat your carbs and the meals that you're going to have pre and post workout is how you digest things and how digestion tends to work for majority of people. So, like I said, fats are a little bit slower digesting, but they can also help avoid energy crashes. So, when you're eating your pre workout meal, you're going to want to have majority carbs and then a few grams of fat to help with energy crashes if you do experience that. And you're going to want protein pre and post workouts. Then post workout, more quick digesting things. So things that are lower in fiber and things that are lower in fat. So quick digesting protein sources. Every protein source has a degree of fat. So you're going to want to choose something that's lower in fat post workout so that it gets into your system relatively quickly and you're able to absorb and digest it. Same thing with carbs so that you're able to replenish those glycogen storages as fast as possible. And then majority of fats you're going to want to save for your dinner because, like I said, slow digestion time can make you feel very tired, very lethargic. So if you ever do have a very high fat meal in the morning and you're like, damn, why do I need a nap by noon? Or if you have a very high fat lunch and you're like, man, I feel so tired today in the middle of your day, you are struggling to get going, be cognizant that having an excess of fat can slow digestion, then making you feel tired. And so that's why majority of my fats are programmed at night. Same with all my clients. And it's just an easy rule to live by. So digestion windows and timing your workouts. Rules of thumb here that you can apply for yourself. Pre-workout, protein, carbs, a little bit of fat. Post-workout, protein, carbs, as little fat as possible, minimal fat. At night, the bulk of fats to help keep you full throughout the night, help promote better sleep, and make sure that you're hitting these fat goals and not just avoiding them entirely because they're essential for proper hormone function, and also just avoiding those crashes that quick carbs will give you. So that's going to kind of lead me to segue into the next 3 points, which is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I said, each meal and each nutrient that you have has a primary purpose. And breakfast, obviously, the primary purpose is going to be fueling you for your day, fueling you for training, fueling your brain for proper thinking so you can be smart, you can be sharp, you can be operating with full force. So the primary purpose of lunch is to replenish all the energy that you utilized at the gym, at work, in your day, and that'll help you have proper rest and recovery and ultimately promote muscle growth because your body has what it needs. And dinner, the primary purpose is going to be recovery, so it's going to be your higher fat meal that's going to segue perfectly into your bedtime, and that will allow you to get as much sleep, restorative sleep as possible so that you can be able to recover properly and train hard the next day, build as much muscle as possible, and be operating and just feeling your very best, your healthiest, and also looking your best. Next up, we're going to discuss activity. Now, I talked about it a little bit prior when we were discussing maintenance and calories and stuff like that, and I mentioned how activity plays a role in determining what your maintenance is. 80-20 rule here. Nutrition is going to be the main driving factor of stimulating fat loss. However, you can increase your activity to then bump up that maintenance or then allow yourself the ability to eat more. However, it's not going to carry as much weight as paying attention to your deficit and the things that you eat. So when it comes to activity, we want to look at training, cardio, and your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's going to be the things that you do, like going on walks, sweeping, vacuuming, things like just human things that you do, because as a human being, you naturally burn calories. So that's what your NEAT is, your lifestyle, basically. And then we'll also discuss steps, walks, and stuff like that. So first, I want to discuss the purpose of these things. Now, training, weight training specifically, is not to burn fat, but to increase lean mass. That is it. So understanding that the purpose of training is because you're trying to increase your lean mass, that's it. It's not there to burn calories. It's not there for weight loss. Cardio and increasing your NEAT or improving your NEAT or your lifestyle habits is what's going to be working hand in hand, however, not equally with fat loss. So when it comes to cardio, obviously that's good for your cardiovascular health, but by increasing your cardio that you're doing, you will stimulate more fat loss so long as that deficit stays the same. So if you want to speed up the fat loss process, you can do more cardio to help stimulate even more fat loss, although it can be utilized solely through nutrition, but cardio helps make the process faster and also strengthens your cardiovascular system. Next, when it comes to NEAT, that's your, like I said, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That is when you burn calories just doing daily human activities in terms of your lifestyle. If you want to increase that, be a more active person. Get a walking pad, take walks, park in the furthest parking spot. Just don't be lazy. Don't try to do everything so conveniently. If you need to take the trash out, go take it out on a walk, stuff like that. Don't opt to drive to do things that are short that can be walked. Next is steps and walks. That kind of falls under NEAT, but it has more benefits than just increasing your NEAT. I have noticed that going on walks and just aiming to get certain steps in forces me to go on walks, which then helps me have better mental and physical health. Now, forcing myself to go on walks inadvertently forces me to take a break, to reflect, to think, to just feel grounded, which then helps me make better decisions, makes my thinking much clearer, and I'm able to help navigate stressful situations that would otherwise have led me to binge or made poor decisions in terms of nutrition. And then physical health, obviously, I don't know where, I just saw a recent video where someone posted that a common trait amongst people that lived a certain age or something was 10,000 steps a day. So it is directly correlated to improving your physical health. Obviously, I didn't need to tell you that because being active is good for you, not bad. It's just sometimes annoying and inconvenient to do, but getting over that hump and understanding that it's just a part of your lifestyle will help you live the lifestyle that then gives you that dream physique without even necessarily having to try. And then next, it aids with digestion. So you can make a rule for yourself that I have similar to me and also all my clients is taking a walk after they eat, again, to help with digestion, but also give them a mental reminder to get out there and get their steps and take a walk. Because if it's at the end of the day and you're like, damn, I have 2,000 steps, I got 8,000 to go, it's 8 p.m., it's going to be really hard. And so if you remember that it helps with digestion, it can help you remember to implement it after you eat. And like I already said, it increases NEAT. Next, we'll talk about hydration, because you heard me say earlier when I discussed hunger cues, something else that can throw off those hunger cues that doesn't necessarily mean you need more food, but will make you feel like you need more food, is dehydration. And so we want to avoid that at all costs. And sometimes we can confuse a need for water with a need for food, like I said. So a couple of rules that I have for myself, for my clients, is water first thing in the morning before anything else, before caffeine, before I look at my phone, before I eat something. I have a wallet right here, 24 ounces of this. As soon as I open my eyes, especially because you went the last 8 hours without water, so your body needs to be rehydrated. And it helps keep me calibrated, and it's a small win that I can easily accomplish in the morning that sets the tone for the day. Next, another rule is 3 to 4 liters of water per day. Now, this is subjective per person depending on your activity levels and where you're currently at, but a good marker is 3 to 4 liters per day. I already touched on the hunger cue part, but oftentimes dehydration is mistaken for hunger, which can lead us to break our deficit or eat nutrients that aren't necessarily benefiting us because we didn't need nutrients, we needed water. Next up, I know that drinking water may be tedious and annoying, but once it becomes a habit, it's not that bad. When you drink water, especially first thing in the morning, it can remove brain fog and improve your cognitive brain function, as well as improving your performance in the gym because you're properly hydrated. Making sure that you're properly hydrated can help you train better, as well as avoid or alleviate those nasty exertion headaches that one may get, or headaches in general that you get when training, when in the gym, because usually those can indicate that you are dehydrated. So we just want to avoid those at all costs, because when we start to feel those things, whether it be the brain fog, the headache, or poor performance in the gym, it can play at our confidence levels. We can feel insecure, when in reality, we just needed water. We don't suck. We're not terrible. We're not weak, anything like that. We just need to make sure that we're on top of our hydration. Next, electrolytes and salts, not necessary. However, they are helpful for strenuous activity, especially when you're sweating a lot or you're in a very hot environment. Those can be beneficial, especially if you struggle with those headaches, like I mentioned previously. So drinking those while you work out or when you're outside, especially after replenishing said activities, that's something that can really help improve your hydration. And then I also included drinks in this. So caffeine is a natural appetite suppressant. So for me, first thing in the morning, I drink my water, and then I have some form of caffeine to start my day. That also pushes back my eating window a little bit, primarily on rest days because I'm not training. However, if I am training, I will still get a meal in relatively soon to my training window, whether it be an hour, hour and a half before I train, to be able to effectively digest and then utilize those nutrients in the training. I also discussed previously when talking about calorie awareness, drinking your calories is not going to be the most beneficial at any point in this journey. I wouldn't ever opt to do it unless it was something like coconut water or a smoothie or something like that, but just like sodas and sugary drinks and stuff, unless it's serving a purpose to you, I would always opt to get the diet or the sugar-free version. When it comes to coffee, you can even make some of your favorite coffee recipes relatively low calorie, like 15 to 20 instead of the usual 200, by just using 0-calorie sweetener and then like low-fat creamer, things like that, almond milk, whatever. I drink mine black, so it's not something that I personally struggle with, but my clients do, so I help them come up with coffee recipes and stuff that are significantly less in calorie than their usual or average. Okay, so those are going to be the 6 laws of nutrition that you need to pay attention to and apply to your lifestyle to be able to get results. And lastly, I mentioned that I had this point that I wanted to discuss with you so you can understand what to expect and what physique development is going to mean, and you can look at this journey in totality so that you don't feel like you're going to be stuck this way forever. Because I don't want you to think that till the day you die, you're going to have to track every damn gram of protein that you're eating, every calorie that you have, because that's not the goal. Sometimes we need to track our macros for a certain period of time to be able to get a gauge to our digestion, what kind of diet we operate best on, and the calorie awareness part. Sometimes people are overweight not because they don't want to be not overweight, but because they're just unaware of calories and how nutrition works and how food can almost totally transform you, not necessarily by eating less, but just eating the right things at the right times. And so a couple things that I want to talk to you about increasing your metabolism and how your body's going to change and what that's going to mean for your nutrition is that the more muscle you have, the more food that you can eat. So as you put on more lean mass, you are then increasing your metabolism. So that's why I didn't want you to think that you're going to be restricting yourself forever. When you put on more mass, your muscles increase in size, therefore allowing them to store and hold more glycogen, allowing you to look lean and toned at a higher body weight. So while you're in that deficit and you're losing fat, you are then becoming more athletic. Your body is more able to perform properly in the gym and push yourself and train harder. That will significantly increase the speed at which your muscle then grows. So that's why fat loss is very important, because when we're overweight and we're carrying excess body fat, we're not as efficient, we don't train as good, we're not athletic. It's very hard for us to push our maximum potential to get that muscle. So fat loss is going to be important for that reason, as well as just becoming healthier. And then muscle growth is going to be important, so we have that lean and toned look, as well as increasing our metabolism, so we're not eating damn near nothing all the time, or we don't feel super restricted. So what I want you to understand in terms of physique development is it's not always going to be this way forever. There are levels and stages in this game, right? And as long as we're following the rules, we can continue to progress. So now that we have a muscular base, we then give the fat something to adhere to. So when you think about fat in comparison to muscle, fat is more malleable, it's jiggly, it adheres to whatever shape it's given, whereas muscle is dense. It has a set structure that is aligned with your stature of your body and your bones. And so when you increase that muscle mass, you then are able to have more flexibility with your nutrition due to the increased metabolism and also due to the predetermined structure that you've built with that muscle. So I'll put it like this, as simple as I can. When you get more muscular, you can carry more fat and still appear to have shape and to be lean and to be toned. So when you are overweight, you probably just look round and fluffy and you're carrying, like, let's say 20% body fat. You're not overweight. Let's say you're skinny fat. You have 20% body fat. When you build muscle, that 20% body fat is going to look a lot different because it has much more muscle definition to cling onto. So you look more defined because you have more muscle, even though you're at the same body fat percentage that you once were when you had no muscle. And so the more of a muscular base you have underneath you, the more fat that you're able to carry and have it still look as if you're lean, toned, and you have a muscular physique. So in building that base and increasing our muscle mass, we increase our metabolism, allowing us to eat more. And then that muscle mass allows us the flexibility to carry a higher body fat percentage and it still look as if we have a lean toned physique. That's why somebody at 20% body fat with no muscle looks different than someone at 20% body fat with a lot of muscle mass. So when I went on my very first bulk, I was like, oh my gosh, I lost all my progress. I'm skinny fat again. Like, what the hell is this? And now I'm in a growing phase, which I put somewhere here. And you can see that although I am carrying more fat, like I'm not at my leanest right now. This is not my leanest physique ever, but it is still muscular. There is still definition. You can see right here, if I were to be at 20% body fat, I would just look skinny fat. Versus right here, I'm probably right around like 20% body fat, maybe somewhere like 20, 25 around there right now. And I look much different and still defined, lean and toned, which allows me the flexibility with my nutrition because of the increased metabolism due to the extra lean mass. And also because I have this base for the fat to adhere to. And simply understanding this is what helped me stop trying to eat as little as possible, be in an extreme calorie deficit at all times, because I understand that when fueled properly, you can build this base and achieve that food freedom and the flexibility to be able to look how I do here and also enjoy life and eat what I want. But you don't start there. You don't get to start at that point. And so you work your way up to it. But once you get there, you have the freedom because you were disciplined in the time before that. And in the journey of getting to this point, I was able to almost develop like a calorie scanner with my eyes or a nutrient scanner with my eyes. I can look at anything in a pantry, on a menu, wherever, and know when I need to eat it, why I need to eat it, and how it's going to serve its purpose for what I'm doing. And so learning that and understanding that, as well as taking the time to apply nutrition to get me where I wanted to be instead of fighting food to try to be skinny and lean and small and whatever because I was so fueled by insecurity, is what has led me to have the freedom and flexibility that I do now. And that is everything that I have for this video. I hope this video is able to shift your perspective on food and also help you understand the game of nutrition. Now, this is what I walk all of my clients through. If you want me to personally walk you through this step-by-step and build it out for you, I will leave a link in the description to book a call with me to see if you'd be a good fit. If you have any questions about this video or want to know anything at all, I will hit you back with a voice message on Instagram, so you can DM me there or you can drop the comments down below. As always, guys, I love y'all. Remember to do hard shit, be confident, have the courage to be uncomfortable. I hope that this video was able to shift your perspective on food, on yourself, give you a positive outlook on this journey, and remind you that it's going to take time and that on the other side of discipline is freedom. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.